In this video, I'm going to be attempting to beat Halo 3 with only a Spiker on Legendary. I did a similar challenge in Halo 1 when I only used an AR to beat the game. This time though, I thought I should use a weapon that to me and many others is useless, so I could see for myself how good or bad it really is. The rules for this challenge are: 1. The game mode has to be set to Legendary. 2. I can use other weapons until I get the Spiker, but once I find one, it's the only gun I can use to kill enemies. 3. I can't use grenades to kill enemies. Sierra 117 was a very unfun start to the challenge. For those that have a keen eye for detail, you can see that I have infinite ammo. This is because I tried to do the level without infinite ammo, and the Jackal snipers did not like the idea of that. That kinda set the tone of the level. The first section where I actually had access to Spikers was a section of the jungle that had some Jackals with carbines and some brutes and grunts. I first used just one Spiker so that I could kill the Jackals, because if I dual wielded, my accuracy would be a lot worse. Even without dual wielding, the Spiker's accuracy is awful. Plus, the spikes travel very slow and have bullet drop. I later learned that tap firing would make shooting from range a lot better. After the Jackals were dead, I did start dual wielding to clean up the rest of the enemies. I then killed some more enemies with RB, and once I got to the river, I went for a swim to avoid a lot of enemies. Then I jumped back up and ran into the forest. There, I slowly worked my way up using rocks and trees as cover. Then, when I got close enough to a Jackal, I would spam him out. In this area where you see Johnson running away, I got bullied by 2 Jackal snipers for quite a bit of time. Even RB got bullied.
An ally has been slain.
This is where I learned that if I tap fired and the Jackals decided not to shoot, I could actually kill snipers at distance. I would first kill the Jackal across the river, then I would kill the one above the cave by jumping back up to where I saw Johnson. Once the Jackal snipers were dead, I slowly killed everything else from cover. At first, I was really stumped on how to approach the final section because of the 2 snipers at the other side of the river. If I tried to kill one, it would kill me first, and if by some miracle it didn't, the other one would definitely snipe me because I was peeking them at the same time. Then I had an idea. What if I just W-keyed into the dam itself before the snipers even saw me? From below, I was able to bait the brutes down to close range where I could spam them and melee them. Even the chieftain followed me down and was quickly taken care of. After most of the enemies were dead, I ran to the building under the Jackal sniper, then into the one with Johnson in it so I could free him. Once I got the message to survive till the Pelican came, I did a grenade jump into the roof and hid until the Pelican killed everything. Then I boarded it.
Ma'am, squad leaders are requesting a rally point. Where should they go?
To war.
The first fight I had in Crow's Nest with the Spiker was the hangar, and it was pretty easy. I could just sit up on high ground and shoot down. When there was just a couple of enemies left, I even saw a Marine valiantly take one for the team. At the drone swarm, I just stayed in the little room with the window and spammed at the drones. From here it was super safe because if I got low on shields, I could retreat to the hallway. It did take a while because of how hard it is to hit a fast-moving target, with a gun that has the bullet speed of a literal sloth. I then had to take on the chieftain fight right before the barracks. I was actually kind of worried about this fight because there was a lot of brutes, but I was actually surprised by how okay the dual-wield Spikers performed. Due to the brutes not rushing me, I could keep them at a distance where the Spikers melted them. Once the chieftain rushed me, I just kited him. Then I picked up his hammer to do a little skip. This is a very well-known trick called a hammer launch. Basically, because of how the hammer interacts with some objects, it's possible to launch yourself using it. Doing this let me skip the whole barracks fight, filled with brutes and a chieftain with a turret. Once I was up the elevator, I had to deal with some jump pack brutes. I first tried being a bit of a baby and just hiding in the elevator while shooting them, but that was very boring. So I decided to go with a much more aggressive approach. Of first backsmacking one of the brutes, then rushing and killing another one for his gun. Then I killed his friend. When the first brute reinforcement dropped down, I shot one of them out of the sky, then punched him. Then I did the same to his friends, while almost dying twice. Right after I killed all of them, I ran to a door where I knew more were coming. I killed the first 2 with more shots and melee, then backsmacked the final 2 as they ran out the door. After killing some grunts and jackals, I was ready to get to the final fight of the mission. I was annoyed, but these were nowhere near as bad as the ones in the last level. The Ops Center was a nice and easy way to end off the combat of the level. First of all, the regular brutes stood in a place where it was hard for them to hit me, but easy for me to hit them. Especially the one on the turret who just, I guess, accepted his fate. Same with the chieftain, he just stood in a corner and let me kill him. The rest of the level, I just ran past everything and then got in an elevator and waited for the level to end. I spent the first half of Savo Highway just driving past everything, except for one brute that I ran over to get his spiker. Even though it took a lot of attempts just because of how RNG this level is, I decided that driving past everything would just be easier than fighting everything in long-range combat with a spiker. At the section with the shield barricade, I drove past everything and broke it, then just kept driving. Until I remembered that I needed a grav lift. So I had to drive back to pick it up, then drive past everything again. With the grav lift, I was able to do a jump that allowed me to stay in the Warthog where the game tries to make you progress on foot. This let me drive past a section filled with brutes and more enemy spam I was not in the mood to deal with. When I thought I had made it past a wraith, I flipped and got one of the worst checkpoints I've ever gotten. I seriously thought I was gonna have to restart the mission, but I was actually able to dodge the wraith shot if I moved out of the way right away, then ran back to my Warthog. I then actually used the spiker to kill a brute before he got in his chopper, so I could take it. I used it to drive up a hill and past all the wraiths. Then I just used the chopper to kill all the brutes in the final section, and I broke the last shield to finish the level. The moment I picked up my least favorite gun in the storm, I was being faced by a grunt driving a ghost. But he didn't look happy driving it, so I took it off his hands, then proceeded to run over a gorilla. Once I was out of the building, I used the ghost to blow up an AA wraith and kill a brute out of his regular wraith. With the wraith, I could easily kill all the ghosts in the area. Then when I got out of it, I saw a brute running for the wraith, and I had to kill him before he lasered me with the turret. There was a chieftain up the stairs, so I decided to jump up some boxes so I could avoid fighting him. After that, I got in a mongoose and me and some marines laid havoc on all the vehicles in the next area. It started with the AA wraiths, then all the ghosts. Then something big closed in on my location, so I rode an elevator to get a good view of it. When I landed on the Scarab, I went to the top so I could shoot the grunts. Then, like the honorable man I am, I punched one of the brutes in the back, then did it again to his friend. Then I got surprised by another brute camping the core. Seems he was as surprised as me because he didn't even shoot back. Just like in Crow's Nest, I used 2 spikers to start murdering brutes. This time though, I had Arby and some marines, which made it much easier. A lot of times the brutes would be distracted, so I could close the distance and burst them down with the dual-wield spikers. Even the hunters were easy to kill, because they were distracted by my marines and Arby. I could just unload mag after mag into them until they fell over. After the hunters died, the next group of Covenant was giving me some trouble though. The 2 brutes with carbines did so much damage to me from range, and I did not do much damage back. I then remembered about the room to the left of them, and from there I was close enough to kill them. Then I saw the chieftain run away. Arby was having none of that, so he ran in there with his sword and was destroying everything, until he got distracted by something on TV. That wasn't good, because I had gotten a bit too close, and the chieftain hit the pavement right before he was about to end my career. At the AA gun, I didn't even have to clear the area. A couple of rounds of fire from my spikers into the gun's ball and the level was over. Floodgate is not a hard mission, even when you can only use a spiker. The first couple of encounters at the level were big groups of Flood, but since I had Arby with me, I could just keep backing up while shooting and he would take most of their attacks while he fought them with his sword. When I got outside, the Flood started spawning with guns, but it was still easy. I also had ally elites, which did a good job of distracting the Flood, unless they decided to throw a grenade at an enemy that was right in front of them. Back inside, the encounters did get a bit more difficult, because there were a lot of Floods spawning at once, and they were all shooting at me. Even though the spiker can't output that much damage, it didn't matter because for some reason, the Flood in the hallway didn't run. They just aura farmed while slowly walking at me. In the room where the Flood dropped down on you, I did die 2 times because I kept rushing in. but once I stopped playing like a dumbass and actually took my time, it was just as easy as the rest of the mission. The last section of the level, with all the pure forms, was more annoying than anything else. It took forever for me to kill them. 1, because the spiker hits about as hard as a wet noodle, and 2, I could only peek for a second at a time because all the pure forms decided to turn into the range forms instead of the tanks. After a while, I was able to kill everything and get Cortana's message from High Charity. I was able to get 2 spikers immediately after starting the arc, because at the first enemy encounter, the brutes holding spikers jump over the wall and try to kill you. With the 2 spikers, I didn't have any trouble clearing out the rest of the enemies. The second encounter wasn't that much harder. All I had to do was first kill the carbine jackals, then the brutes would walk up to me on the right and I could easily gun them down. Once the hunters got dropped off, I wanted to run past them, so I did a little jumping over rocks to avoid them, then I ran up a hill. But I had forgotten there was a Covenant squad at the top, and they killed me. I was feeling stubborn, so I tried this again, this time going slower so I could kill the squad, and then I got shot from behind by one of the hunters who was chasing me up the hill, and then I got shot by the other one down below. Lucky for me, there was a corner where I could hide from both the hunters, and I could peek to shoot at the brutes and grunts. When they were low enough, I just made a run for it, and somehow didn't die. At the downed Pelican, I killed the group of Covenant guarding the vehicles, then I hid so I wouldn't die to the Prowlers, and then I drove off. Part of the way through my drive, I swapped to a Ghost, and then used the Ghost to clear the LZ for the Dawn. The next part of the mission was the tank section. Pretty standard, not really worth talking about. At the Scarab fight, I used the tank to make it take a knee, then I blew up the core. After the Scarab was blown up, I was making my way up the tower, then I got sniped by a jackal. I took that very personally, so I got in a chopper, then jumped onto the building and rode it up. Then I dropped down, getting out early so I wouldn't die to the fall timer, then dropped down one more time and used it to kill the jackal. Inside the building, I started by beating to death a pedestrian that was just trying to take a piss. Then I slowly cleared out a room full of brutes with brute shots using a doorway as cover. After getting abandoned by Arby, I had to re-enter the room, but this time it had a chieftain. I felt kinda stuck. I couldn't enter the room because if I took cover from the chieftain, the brutes on the left would rush me. Then for some reason, the brutes on the left put down a bubble shield. Using it as cover, I was able to melee both of them to death. When it was only the chieftain left, we did this little dance where we would both hide behind cover, then shoot, then hide again and again. This ended when the chieftain blew himself up. The next room had some camo brutes. They were no threat at all because all they had were spikers, which as an expert, I can tell you ain't the best option. The hammer brute was dispatched of easily because he wants to 1v1 for some reason. Then from cover, I slowly killed all the jump pack brutes and I got picked up by the Pelican. I wanted to start off the Covenant by doing the glitch where you're able to drive the AA Wraith, but for some reason, I just couldn't kill the driver with the spiker. He would only die when I meleeed him, and if I did that, I couldn't drive the Wraith, because I had to enter the vehicle the second he died, and the melee animation is just too long for that. So, I decided to do the second best thing, which was get in the Warthog and give the passenger a Spartan laser. He was making quick work of the Ghost, until I kind of left him out to dry, and he got blown up by a Wraith. With one of the Ghosts, I was able to revenge kill the Wraith. When the Prowlers spawned, I gave the laser to another Marine on the back of a Mongoose. Then together with me on the Ghost, we blew them up. In the tower, I saw a big group of enemies, and me, being lazy and not wanting to fight, decided to do some jumps onto boxes, and then on a ledge, and then to the second floor, then onto the elevator. This was kinda pointless, because all those enemies I skipped, I still needed to kill, because they camped the exit for some reason when you come back down. But before I dealt with that, I still needed to kill the brutes at the tower controls. This was not difficult. At this point, I was very used to killing brutes. Not even the chieftain wanted to face my spikers. He preferred to just run away like a little Back to the enemies I thought I could skip. They were right where I figured they would be. They did take a while to take out, because even though I was used to using the spikers, they still suck. Here, let me speed it up for you, so you can see how long it takes to kill things, even if it isn't hard to do. When I got to the second tower, I used the Hornet to kill as many brutes as I could. Then I made my way inside. Me and the elites killed the drones, and then I handled the hunters. Now that I had Arby with me again, the brutes were dealt with fast. Then I once again cleared the top of the tower. This chieftain didn't even get a chance to run. The tank section was pretty easy. Then for the scarabs, I used the Hornet to kill most of the brutes riding it, and shot at its legs so when I landed on it, it wouldn't move and knock off my Hornet. Then I did the same thing to the other one. During the first section of the Citadel, I just spammed from far back, while the Flood caught most of the bullets for me. In the next section, I was once again just spamming the brutes while the Flood overran them. Then all of a sudden, a brute without a jump pack did one of the best high jumps I've ever seen. On the way out of the Citadel, Arby handled most of the combat forms, while I mostly just laid down suppressive fire until we made it out. I was not happy this level was over, because that meant I had to play Cortana next. So, Cortana didn't end up being as hard as I thought it would, but it was really boring and took forever to beat, mostly because of the pure forms. The first section probably took the longest, just because of the amount of flood there was. None of them were hard to kill because the spiker actually cuts through them pretty fast. Well, except for the ones with energy shields. I just had to keep pushing up a little bit at a time, then retreating while shooting until all the enemies were dead. The next area had some ranged forms spamming me. The best way to kill them was just to peek one of them at a time and unload spikes into them until they died. I had to do this while also dealing with combat forms, tank forms, and infection forms running at me. After getting past that area, I had to deal with the accurately named Hell's Hallway. This is a long hallway filled with a lot of ranged forms and a big group of combat forms that rush you. The trick to doing this hallway, for me, was to keep killing as many ranged forms as I could, then once they were all dead, I walked up to the hallway to trigger the rush of the combat forms. I did this and was surprised at the low amount of combat forms. For some reason, when I did this, not all the combat forms rushed me, so when I turned the corner at the end of the hallway, I was faced with a big group of them. Somehow, I was able to run backwards while shooting and make it back to cover before they killed me. The next area was a big room I had to make my way up, that of course, was filled with more pure forms. The strategy of this area was to stay at the entrance and kill as many pure forms as I could. They like to drop down right in front of you, and the spiker does a really good job of killing Flood up close. Because of this, when I finally made my way up the room, I barely had to deal with any more enemies. I cleared the reactor room, the same as the other areas, by spamming everything until it died. When I picked up Cortana, I was forced to drop one of my spikers. This wasn't the end of the world, because the spiker melee is pretty good against the Flood, and a brute combat form delivered me one right away anyways. After clearing out some of the enemies, I pressed a button to expose some parts of the reactor or something, then I ran back from cover and blew them up with grenades. I started to walk across this bridge, then I fell off the map. Okay, that was a bit dumb of me, and I fell off again. Those were actually my first 2 deaths of the level. The rest of the level, I just spent running past all the Flood until I got to Arby and the Pelican. I started off Halo by picking up a gravity hammer and a spiker. I used the gravity hammer to jump onto the side of the building, then jump on top of the structure's middle thing. The reason I did this was to avoid having to walk up the whole ramp. This way, I could make it to the top right away. At the top of the ramp, I did another jump up to the ledge where Johnson was on. From this vantage point, me and Johnson could safely kill all the waves of Flood. Inside the control room, I was forced to use the Spartan laser, since it's the only way to damage Spark. Luckily, right after I got back outside, I was able to pick up another spiker from a dead combat form. With my dual-wield spikers, I cleared out the last room of enemies, then got on the Warthog so I could do the Mongoose run. Once that was done, I had officially completed the game. So, after almost beating the whole game using only the spiker, do I still think it's useless? No. But there is zero reason to use it over other weapons. It doesn't break brute armor as fast as plasma weapons, it doesn't headshot like precision weapons, and it's terrible against vehicles. Some enemies that it's okay against are the drones and hunters. There are so many better options for those enemies. The only enemy I would say it's decent against is the Flood. The fast firing can handle the infection forms, and the melee is pretty good against the pure forms and combat forms. Still, there are better options like the sword and the shotgun. To sum it up, it's not useless, just pointless most of the time. Also, it's just annoying to use because of how slow the spikes travel.